Hey, what's going on? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Time for a few laughs. It's Andrew Savage.
No pressure.
No pressure. Oh, blah, blah,
what was
blah,
that?
Andrew Savage, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Off to a great start already.
Off to a great start. There's a connection that can't be denied.
No, definitely not. How's everything going for you?
Everything is going very well.
You've been cooped up in your hotel room, just working your ass off on this show.
I have. Well, I was just telling you that I was in town for something, and so instead of flying back to LA, I've stayed in town, and I've been working remotely, writing season 3 of my show, I'm Sorry.
Yes.
And so I haven't left my hotel room for like 11 hours a day, so I'm pretty sure the hotel thinks I'm a crazy woman.
No doubt, yeah.
Well, because they haven't seen me leave, and I'm sharing a screen and Skyping into my writer's room, so it just sounds like 11 hours I'm in there laughing and screaming to myself and crazy stuff that appears to be of me alone in my hotel room, not allowing housekeeping or anything. I just have do not disturb and no one sees me.
So what are you doing for food? Are you getting room service? Or are you just
I've gotten
dipping
room
out?
service a couple times, and then I'll like sort of put a hat on and like sneak out and grab like a sandwich and then run back in. It's alarming.
Yeah,
I'm
little
concerned
intense.
about my
yeah,
health.
I'm a little concerned for you too, but
It's only been 2 days, and then I go home. So
right, then
yeah.
it's back to normal.
And we're back to normal, yeah.
So how many people are in your writer's room?
This season, let's see, I have my co-showrunner, Joey Slayman, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Nice.
And one's a writing team. So it's
Gotcha.
4 entities, one's a writing team. Yeah.
And have they been consistent throughout, or you got some new people coming in? Or?
There's one woman, Elizabeth Lame, who has been there for 2nd and 3rd season. Everyone else is new.
Gotcha.
Yeah, every season it's new people.
So you like having some new, fresh voices coming in there?
Yeah, we need new stories, and also we hire good people who then get busy. And it takes us a long time to do the show, so by the time we come back to writing, people are, on to their other shows because we're not holding them. We can't afford to hold people.
What do you usually like to look for in a writer? Like, what is something that typically pops out in a good writer?
This is a really non-traditional writer's room because we room write everything, and so nobody actually goes off to script
does their own thing. Okay.
and like comes in and goes, this is what I think Andrea would be doing. Let me go outline it out, and then I look at it and go, yes or no. It's really, we story tell, and because all of it's kind of based on real life and my real life, we're putting it all through my filter, so we room write everything together. So I look for people whose lives are mirroring mine in a big way, and whose points of view are similar to mine in that edgy but not dark. Like to have a lot of parents in the room, people who have kids. This season, our writer's room is a little bigger than actually, even though it sounds small, bigger than used to. And we do have 2 people who don't have kids yet, and that was important. I wanted to get some other perspectives in the room for some of the characters that don't have kids. But it really is people who are going to be super open about their personal lives. I know everything about everyone's spouse, parent, friends. It is a circle of trust.
Does this come up in the interview, or is it once you get the job? Really?
Oh, no, because it's like
so you fire away, because you seem like the type of person who just lays out all your cards.
Well, if you're looking for someone, you need to know people are comfortable with it. Also, people at this point know the show, and they've kind of heard. A lot of times it tends to be people, they end up having worked with people that I've worked with in the past, so I vet them a lot. How was it like to work with them? Are they open? So you kind of do your research, and somebody who, like I said, isn't like coming from a dark, shitting on people place comedically, who's got some edge to them, though.
Yeah, edgy, but also smart with what they're writing.
Smart and kind of a good person.
Yeah,
I don't want
that's
like
important.
a shit.
Yeah. You're good. Come on. That's a word all allowed.
I know. Okay, but I'm like, I totally was like, can we swear? And then I'm like, blah.
Yeah, you know what? You're a comedian. You let it rip.
I
cool with that.
I do let it rip. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
So yeah, it's a tricky room to fill, but we've got a really great group this year. So
that's awesome.
I'm excited. Yeah.
So what's been the best part of this experience so far? Because I'm sure there's been a lot of really interesting parts of it, but what sticks out to you?
Honestly, the realization that I'm living a true dream, and to be able to do your show, the exact show that you want to do, supported by the network with very limited intervention, and I get to see my vision from the first time it pops in my head and get to be involved in every part of it and see it actually come out the way I envisioned it in my head.
That's really cool.
Is everything. Because I know that this is a finite amount of time and that this is a luxury and that it rarely happens, that you are able to shepherd something really beginning to end.
How surprised were you that you were able to do that throughout
Shocked.
the entire thing?
Absolutely shocked.
That's not the status quo for most people.
No, it's not how television works.
Yeah.
It's all been these weird little flukes that have sort of let it happen in that way. Because this is my 8th show that I developed. The only one that ended up going, but the rest of them, you know, just even in the development process, the ideas were changed so much.
Right, you get people that come in and they think they know the show better than you do.
Yeah, or they're like, we love that, but we'd love it to be exactly the opposite. And you're like, okay.
There's so much BS in those conversations,
so
I imagine.
much.
You're like, just be honest with me, okay?
Yeah, or just why did you develop this in the first place?
Right.
Because now it apparently seems that you don't like anything about what the original idea is.
Yeah.
So you just like me, but not in the way that I want to do it.
Yeah, well, and this is truly you.
Yeah.
You know?
And so to have it, and you know, it's hard to shepherd something beginning to end. It takes me about 13 months to do one season, to do 10 episodes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Because we write it all separately, and then pre-production separate, then production, and then post. So it's like everything has to be back to back, whereas if you're not the creator and on camera and directing, you can overlap a lot of those places, but we can't. So it takes a long time. But it is the most satisfying thing to be like, that was my idea, and I was able to actually execute it the way I wanted it to without it getting watered down or devolve into something else. Is, as a creator and performer, anything is everything.
So you mentioned this being a dream. When did that dream come to mind? Like, is this more of a recent thing? Has it been like way back, like I want to do my own show, write my own stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this I think was my 8th show. So I've been writing and producing. I was on a show called Dog Bites Man in like 2006, I think it was. And that was the first time I became a writer-producer on something I was on. And I was like, oh, this feels more right to me than just being an actor. And from then, I was attempting to write my own show for, 10 years before that finally went.
Did you try like all different types of ideas? Were they similar ideas that you were just kind of retooling, or was this?
No, they were all kind of different ideas, but they all were based on some reality of my life and for me to play in.
And was this one the most true to form?
Yeah,
Okay.
this one was definitely, it was a decision where it was like, I wanted to do one of those single point of view shows like, Larry David or, even Louis or, the couple other examples of where really the log line is just a person who's getting through life and navigating their way through what life brings you. But it's only about the execution.
Right.
You could say Everybody Loves Raymond is that way.
Absolutely.
Girls was that way. Like where people have really specific voices. And the actual log line is not sexy or that interesting, but it's just the way you do it in your specific voice that's going to make it work.
Totally, it's a person that we would bump into in real life, as opposed to like some of these shows. You're like, this person would just never exist. You know?
100%. Or the concept is so wacky. You're like, oh, so they just got divorced, but now they're living together, raising their kids, but they have other families, and you're like, what's happening?
And we've seen iterations of all those different types of things where it's like, this is just your story. This is unique to you. You know, it's different from the other stuff that's out there.
And nobody, if you broke it down, it's the same as 100 other shows in terms of its basic thing. But I think those are the best kinds of shows that I like to see because it's really about the voice versus hijinks and, wacky setups.
Right, you know the themes that'll work on TV, but then you make it your own, and it's like, okay, here we go. Now
so it feels nice to like really sit in the pocket of like what you know you do well and what you wanted to do when you started it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Why don't we bounce around?
Satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we bounce around throughout your career here? Let's talk about Veep. And Laura Montes.
Laura Montes.
That must have been quite a fun time for you. We've had a couple of cast members from Veep here, and what a great show that was. So,
but a lot of jerks, right?
A lot of jerks, just awful people.
They're not, I would say, they're not as talented as they think they are, and they're just not nice people.
Yeah.
It's literally the funniest, nicest group of people to work with. And I feel like I've been lucky and worked with some really great people.
Yeah.
but, and it starts from the top. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is one of my idols, and she does not disappoint. But all of them are fantastic.
They really are. And your character, too, is just busting the party wide open.
Busting the party wide open. It was just super fun to do. And when I auditioned for it, I didn't know what the role was for.
Oh, really?
Because they had fake sides, because they didn't want to reveal that somebody becomes president in front of her. So I thought it was just a senator, and they had set up that the woman, you know, spoke Spanish, and actually, I think, originally was potentially going to be Hispanic, and then there was some improv involved, and I talked about how I married a man, whatever, and so that worked, and then I got to improv with her, and I think they, you know, liked that sort of way, and then wrote for that. It was so exciting. When I found out that I was going to be president, I was just like, what?
You're like, really? This is happening?
Is happening? Like on Veep? I'm on Veep?
Of all the shows that you could be president on.
It really, when I did the inauguration scene and I took the oath, there are people cheering, and it's like, it was like, this is surreal.
You're like, I never imagined this in my life, let alone in doing it in a TV show.
And it felt so real that there is a part of me now in this current climate where I'm like, listen, if everything really goes to hell and someone needs me to step in,
I'm ready.
I feel actually kind of ready. Like, there's a part of me that's like, I mean, I've taken the oath.
Yeah, you've taken the oath.
I take this seriously.
You've been in the office.
Yeah.
You have that experience.
I've been in the Oval Office.
That's more experience than some other people had.
That is true. It's this ridiculous false sense of I actually am ready for this.
Isn't that hilarious how that works? It's like you can just convince yourself of anything. Like, I can do this. I can do that.
But
no
also,
problem.
I know we're joking around. I kind of feel like I could.
Yeah, why not?
I can get stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a multitasker.
I mean, listen, you run a show
I run
now.
a show.
You got
I
writers.
run a podcast.
Yeah.
I have a marriage. I have a child. I can do this.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
What's so different?
I was a
about being
political science major.
That's right. Yeah.
So I was pre-law.
You got the history.
I got this.
Yeah. So speaking of that, by the way, how did you make the jump from pre-law to acting?
You know what? It's not the most. I did theater through junior high and high school, but I was very academic as well.
Gotcha.
And I grew up in LA, and I was like, I would never be an actor. That's so irresponsible. I can't think of anything lamer.
Right.
And then I was pre-law at Cornell, and still a good student. Still did theater. And then when I was a junior, I did year abroad, and I was out of the country.
Where'd you go?
Spain.
Nice.
And best. And I suddenly was like, oof. I feel like I want to try it for like a year. Like just as a break.
Yeah, no biggie.
And then I'll go back to school.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And never honestly didn't think that I would stay with it. I think I always was like, I know I'll find it too irresponsible and, you know, for my mindset. And then I did it and then never got out. I just kept getting enough movement forward that I just stayed.
What were some of the early things that you started pushing forward with? You're like, I'm gonna stick this out. Like, I'm gonna be an actor here.
I got on a show relatively quickly that was a kids show called Sweet Valley High, where I played Renata Vargas, the Brazilian exchange. You say like you were a fan, like you know Renata Vargas.
I don't know it specifically, but I know of the show. How about that?
So I became a series regular on that. And honestly, I did student films. I did like commercial. I did like a blind commercial mailing and started getting commercials and making some money. So I did Sweet Valley High, and then I did these like these casting director workshops where you like basically pay to audition to meet casting directors when you can't like break in.
Right.
And I got some jobs from that. And then I fell into Groundlings and worked my way through Groundlings and got in the Sunday Company there.
How long did you do that for?
It took probably 4 years to get through the whole thing, and then did stand-up, and then started booking other work. Like, it just kind of kept...
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, it was like I did a lot of like those mid-90s, or not, late 90s sitcoms that like you forgot existed, like Good Morning Miami. And like, one of my early ones, like Suddenly Susan was one of my first jobs, you know? And it was just like enough, and moving forward in the comedy world, and yeah.
What do you feel like the one was that put you on a bigger platform?
I would say there was a show I did called Significant Others, which was originally for NBC but ended up on Bravo. We did 2 seasons of it, and it didn't like get a ton of viewership, but was very critically acclaimed, and that started getting people to sort of notice. And then Dog Bites Man, and then Step Brothers. I think those were kind of like 3 in a row that really sort of set everything.
And Step Brothers was like this whole new audience came into it like after it was in theaters, you know?
Step Brothers
Crazy.
became, it has had legs.
Yeah.
Where it's so interesting. That is a movie that I would not have, I mean, I had so much fun doing it and I think it's such a funny movie, but it has become like a cult classic.
Has. Yeah.
There's people from like Joaquin Phoenix. It's like, so apparently he was on talk show 2 weeks ago saying it's his favorite movie.
That's insane.
And
like, you
Jennifer
never would
Lawrence. And
expect
then
that.
David Copperfield walked up to me at a party and was like, Step Brothers is my favorite movie.
Oh my
like it's
gosh.
like it's a weird
It's a weird mix of people.
And
right?
I can always tell if I'm like walking up to a cash register or something and there's a person of a certain age, like I know exactly what they're gonna be like,
Right.
oh my God,
They're like Dr.
Step Brothers,
Angelface.
Dr.
Yeah.
Angelface. And it's like a really specific demographic, but it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea to be in something that people love that much and with other such funny people in it.
I mean, the fact that people are still looking at you like, is that
Dr.
Dr.
Angelface?
Like all these years later, because it's over 10 years now, right?
Oh yeah, it came out in,
Like
I know
late?
because I was pregnant at the premiere.
Okay.
So it came out in 2008.
Yeah. So
So
it's 11 years later.
11 years later.
And still people are talking about it.
Still, I know, I feel like almost more than they were when it came out.
Which is so strange because
Yeah.
at that time you're like, Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, like, yeah, these guys are hilarious, but maybe it just kind of got caught up in a lot of those movies that were kind of similar at that time, but who knows, you know?
I don't know. It's had legs,
Yeah.
which is great.
Absolutely.
It's exciting to me.
You'll take it.
I like it.
What are some of the other things that you can think about that you've loved doing? I mean, you've done
Veep, for
I
sure.
mean, Veep, no question.
I also was on a show called Episodes, which was on
Right.
Showtime.
Yeah, Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc, and I think that show, I know it was critically respected,
Mm-hmm.
and I know Matt like won an award, like I think a Golden Globe or something for it early on. Is the most well-written show. It is laugh out loud, funny, and like gets you. It is such a good show that I wish more people watched. And I was
Yeah.
only on the last 2 seasons. But it is, if you're looking for a show to go back and watch and you want to I mean, it's a little dark, but not mean dark. It is so funny. It's on Showtime.
Yeah, it's a good binge show because I had
it's
a
a
friend who
great
like
binge
ripped
show.
through all of them in college and he loved it.
It is such a good show, and I feel like it flew under the radar too much, but I had so much fun shooting that show. And we shot in London.
Oh, wow.
So I got to go to London twice
That's dope,
and brought
yeah.
my whole family, and that was awesome.
Not a bad deal.
Not
yeah.
a bad deal. I don't know. I'm trying to. I feel like I've been super lucky in that I've gotten to work with, even the movies that didn't like necessarily like break out and work. I've gotten to work with such great people, and like I have a fight scene in that movie, The House, that came out last year, where Lennon Parham and we like rehearsed. I mean, we trained for like a month for this knockdown,
Wow.
like 3-minute MMA fight.
Oh my God.
And it is one of my favorite things I've ever shot.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So if you watch The House, if only just to watch that
Just
scene.
that 3-minute long
Yeah.
scene. Just
But I mean, it's
understand
got
the
Will
work that
Ferrell
went
and
into it.
Amy Poehler and Mantzoukas and Kroll and Alison Tolman. I mean, it's got amazing people in it. But
Yeah, and it's awesome that like these relationships from all these years past, like you can still work with these people.
Yeah.
Like it's a cool deal.
Yeah, comedy's good like that.
Yeah.
Like there's little like
People take care of each other.
people
look
take
after
care of each other, and you step up and you go do someone's like how many people on I'm Sorry, you know, have stepped up. They don't
Totally.
get paid money,
Right,
good
but they're
money.
like,
Like
hey,
they get
you know
the
what?
same
For
amount as
Andrea,
everyone
I'm gonna
else.
do it.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
show up, and then when my friend has a show, and they're like, "Will you come do it?" Of course, I'll come do it.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of a nice
Nice little
team
give and take with that.
camaraderie that you
Definitely.
feel supported. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what are
Yeah.
some other things you haven't done yet that you'd still like to do?
Oh my God, so much stuff. Because for the past 3 years, I think I've only been able to really do one
This is your
other
life,
job
yeah.
because this really is more than a full-time job. I want to, I want to direct more, like write and direct. So there's a movie idea that I want to write and direct. I want to start a production company to help other people with voices that aren't necessarily getting to like be heard, be able to do like pilot presentations. I want to write a book. I want to do a musical. Like,
oh wow, you want to do it all?
I want to do it all. I'm not
awesome.
going to stop. It's just I like to push myself and keep, scaring yourself a little bit. I just
Yeah.
started a podcast.
Right.
That was I didn't know nothing about it, so that's been a whole learning curve of figuring that out. So I just want to, I like doing stuff.
Force yourself to be a little bit uncomfortable doing some things.
I like being a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I also like the idea of controlling your own stuff. Like,
Yeah.
there was a story I read about Elizabeth Banks a couple years ago, and she starts her whole production company, and like she'd had a great career, but like now she's a power player with what she's doing. Like that's how you kind of take things to the next level, and I feel like this is an example of taking the next step as well.
And you really, you know, you have to put your money where your mouth is, and you have to be comfortable and go like, if the show hadn't worked, I was like, there's no one I can blame.
Right.
If it works, I'll probably get more credit than I deserve because I do have so many people that do support me. But if it doesn't, I will take full responsibility because this was my stamp, top to bots.
Buck stops with you.
Yeah.
Andrew, it's been a pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Back in 2020?
Back in 2020.
All right, cool. Good deal. For Andrea, I'm DJ. See you next time here on The Sit Down.